Hello and welcome. It's your host, John Davidson. And can you believe it? It's already episode 30 of Career Coaching After Hours. So thank you very much for joining me. This is a very important episode and a topic I deal with far too often. So I've finally created an entire presentation, entire YouTube video here, and hopefully will be up on the podcast channel here soon, about job search scams. They are pure nefariousness. And if you've ever bumped into one of these, or you have a friend or family member or colleague who's ever been burned or bitten by one of these, they are absolutely awful. And 2025 seems to have been a banner year now that we can kind of see some of the data from fraud and job scams. But they're certainly not slowing down here in 2026, especially with the job market the way that it is. So buckle up for this one. There are a lot of good resources in the YouTube channel notes, so feel free to check those out, including the FTC and Indeed and some other sources there that can give you a little bit more info if you like, as well as my website and some of the articles that I've written over the years, such as on Medium. So let's dive in a little bit. As usual, this series is audience agnostic, so if you are one of my clients, fantastic. I assume most of you are not. So this isn't to be construed as career advice for any one particular person. Yes, there's music. Yes, it's well researched. As usual, this is all to the best of my knowledge as of May 2026. So check your sources, and like I say, even check out some of the resources that I've listed out to do a little bit more of your own digging. And for crying out loud, report a scam if you see one or if you've been burned by one. There'll be some information there towards the end of the presentation on that. So yes, that's essentially me more often than not, than I'd like to believe, at least looking at kind of trends, not just in the job market, but also kind of what to watch out for in terms of job scams, not just on career sites like Career Builder and Indeed and Monster and those kind of sites, Glassdoor, what have you, LinkedIn, but also across the web, even on just social media, what have you. So let's dive in here a little bit. And this article just came out this month here, May 2026, Forbes, for crying out loud, $15.9 billion in fraud losses in the United States, according to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. We'll be hearing a lot about them. And as far as I know, those figures include job scams. So that is a lot of money. That is like a Fortune 500 company in terms of revenue. So scams are booming. And on top of that, jobs are a bit tight in this kind of no hire, no fire environment. So 2026 has been this really interesting roller coaster where it's just been hard to get a bead on how many new jobs have been created. And a lot of job seekers struggling, to say the least. We also have a graduation season upon us here in June, so you have a lot of new grads out of high school and college and grad school, what have you, and now they're looking for a part-time or a full-time job. And AI, I think one of the real challenges here, and sometimes you see it in the media a little bit when it comes to cybersecurity, is that AI has given hackers and fraudsters all kinds of unprecedented tools to go after more job seekers who are so often desperate, which is really what's sad about job-seeking scams, you could say. That you've got scammers who are trying to bilk people out of money or get their bank account information or scam them out of other resources, crypto resources, what have you, and waste their time when they're in job search mode, and they're probably extra vulnerable. So we'll talk about how some of these things that you might see in terms of job search scam might just be suspicious, or they might be symptomatic in terms of strange email addresses or recruiter contact on LinkedIn. There are different kind of layers to these scams, and certainly some yellow, orange, and red flags to be aware of. So, and that's what I mean too. For example, a recruiter might be using a personal email address, like a Gmail account, which I would say is an orange or a red flag, to lull someone into applying to just a straight up fake job, which I'd say is, of course, a red flag. So you might see these multiple layers of scams, and that's one of the challenges when you're looking through resources like, for example, the FTC's portal, which I'll show you here in a bit, or in my state here, Washington State, we've got the Office of the Attorney General, they've got a whole page dedicated to job scams. And so some of these are phishing scams with links that you shouldn't click on, and they're more immediate. But in some cases, you're being held on the line for a little bit. There may be training or supplies that you have to pay for, and they're far more elaborate. So it's really interesting to tease these out and to take a look at maybe some of these different flags, as I call them. So, ugh, here we go. Let's dig in here a little bit. But yeah, I think a good reminder is that we arguably are in a job seeker recession of sorts, where you've got this kind of slow hiring and low unemployment, just creating this stagnation in the job market. So don't know if the stats will bear this out, if job scans are noticeably worse here in 2026 than usual, but do protect yourself, and feel free to share this presentation and some of these links with people you know that might be searching for a new role. All right. And even John Davidson, even a career counselor and career coach, I get some very interesting messages once in a while on LinkedIn. And this is one I actually got this month. And so I put in some screenshots there. You can't see who sent it to me or what the organization's name is, but just kind of an interesting case study. I mean, we'd like to believe maybe that if you're getting some messages from LinkedIn, a recruiter on LinkedIn, maybe that's a little bit more above board. But I would say with any recruiter that's reaching out, or an HR person or a hiring manager, if somebody is messaging you or emailing you about a job, you probably would want to make sure that you can actually email them from a dedicated email address. For example, at Microsoft, at Amazon, at Boeing, a real company, at the state of Washington, what have you, not Gmail. Even though sometimes I use my Gmail address, but certainly I have my own domain. So a message on LinkedIn is not necessarily any more or less credible, but certainly this raised a whole bunch of orange and red flags when I saw this. And this gets into kind of the issue where, for example, this person messaged me about what turned out to be a real open job in my area, but the person on LinkedIn had nothing to do with the organization and was on a completely different continent. Not even just a different time zone, but a different continent. Really suspicious, but kind of odd. When I did some of the backlinking, it seemed like it might be legitimate, which is almost doubly weird. So if you do get a message from someone on LinkedIn, you can report that through LinkedIn, by the way. So double check that. But the rationale for getting a message or an email about a job search scam or a job or something that seems suspicious could be a host of issues. Could be a phishing attempt. They might want access to files on your computer. They might want your bank account info. It might be identity theft, where they want you to fill out an application, that kind of thing, or just straight up bilking folks for cash. That's one of the strange things about this web of job search scams. There's all the motives for doing it, frankly, not just the methods of doing it. Again, be really careful. I'm going to go through some of the more common ones and try to pull in some of their similarities, so this isn't a 5-hour presentation. We'll try to keep it to 30 minutes or less. But this is a somewhat common one. I've had clients pinged on this one before, and I even recall a client almost getting burned by this one pretty badly before we hit the brakes on it, thankfully. They finally let me know what was going on. I said that's a scam. So if you have a career coach or you have someone you can bounce ideas off of, you may want to do that, even if it's friends and family. But work from home job scans can take a whole bunch of different twists and turns. And this is kind of gets into fake onboarding too. So if you're being asked to pay for things like desks or a mouse or a keyboard or materials or something that you might ship out or anything like that, starter kits, certifications, selling things to people that you don't know, that's a bit odd. So if you have to pay for a background check, if you have to pay for a specific type of laptop or shipping fees, that's probably at least an orange flag or some really serious red flags. You could say the gist of any job that somebody might take is you're trading your time and your labor for money. It's a pretty simple transaction. So, for example, if I take a job at a restaurant, I've worked in the restaurant industry, I'm trading my time for money. And I probably don't need to buy a whole bunch of equipment necessarily to do the job beyond maybe safety equipment, maybe a uniform, maybe shoes, those kind of things. Some of that might be reasonable, but if it seems overly burdensome that you have to buy a bunch of stuff, that's probably scary. That's probably a scam. So be aware of those. Another classic that has happened for years and seems to have only gotten worse in 2026 is that your resume is just simply broken. And I take personal umbrage at these kind of attacks here. I think they're absolutely vicious where, and I've had clients have these messages on LinkedIn or emails pop up where it seems like a recruiter wants to submit you or your LinkedIn profile or maybe your resume, your CV to a particular job. But, gosh, we really should update this resume and get this fixed up for you. Gosh, if only it were better. Then we can go ahead and submit you to this job. And so you see these kind of scams where they might call themselves an executive recruiter of some kind, or they might work for something such and such enterprises. But for a small fee, maybe $50, maybe $500, maybe $1,500, gosh, they'll spruce up your resume and spruce up LinkedIn, and then they'd be happy to submit you, which is broken. So if a recruiter is asking you for money, then we're into this situation where it's not even a third-party recruiter anymore, versus a first-party recruiter, a recruiter at like Boeing, Microsoft, Amazon, Starbucks, or something like that, who's an employee. So, like I say, that's kind of sure level fraud and scam right there. So be careful of that one, please. Another one that's kind of an offshoot of this kind of pay-to-play problem is the idea of gamification or task scams. And there's actually an interesting article right there on the FTC website there where you're seeing more of these type of scams pop up. Social media job scams. Maybe somebody messages you through Facebook or Instagram, maybe Pinterest, and you're clicking, you're reviewing products. There's something where your labor is kind of tied to an activity. There's this gamification. They can track it, and it seems easy. Gosh. There are even apps that allegedly you can play the app and get free stuff and gift cards for your time in some way. So arguably that's some type of a scam, maybe not just a game of some sort, but really sad to see that these have ramped up over time. So be extra careful. Gosh, I'd like to believe if you're getting a message from a recruiter on anything other than LinkedIn, as far as social media, that might be a bit odd sort of thing. So we'll talk about LinkedIn Premium as a way to circle back on that and figure out if that might be overly suspicious. Another category that I don't think gets maybe enough airplay or airtime is crypto job scams. And the FBI has an interesting spot on their website about crypto job scams. And that could be where somebody is masquerading as an employee of a legitimate company, maybe attempting to recruit you for an online-only position of some sort, where then suddenly, you have to deposit your own money into a crypto wallet or something like that. Are you being paid with crypto, or you're asked to create something that you didn't have before, a different type of crypto wallet or some kind of separate coin that maybe you've never traded in before. And I think that's maybe a double whammy. So not only is it kind of this fake work from home scheme, but then we're really diving into the deep end for how the worker would be compensated. And you could say it's just another offshoot of maybe being paid in Amazon gift cards or something like that, or Visa or MasterCard gift cards. So if you're not being offered payment in actual spendable dollars, that's probably a scam. So like I say, some of these seem to bump into each other in terms of what you're seeing, whether it's a strange link or a strange email, or you're being asked to create something fundamentally new that you didn't have before. That magically you need a new resume, you need a new crypto wallet, you need to go through a specific training program. If there seem to be some strange hoops you might need to jump through, it's more likely a scam. So be really careful. And of course, literal pyramid schemes, and I don't want to get into the discussion of an MLM versus a Ponzi scheme versus a pyramid scheme, but one of the challenges I was highlighting above was just how you're being compensated. So FTC has a whole offshoot page just on MLM businesses and pyramid schemes. So if you suddenly have to sell products to friends or family, or you have to buy a starter kit kind of thing. I even did that in college for a little while with an organization that sold kitchen products, and suddenly they want you to sell these things to everyone, and it certainly seems to be something very different than a job, even though it was initially advertised as an hourly pay job. So be careful of that kind of thing. Are you being paid by project or by click or by visits or with gift cards? There can be some different layers to these type of schemes. And if you get bonus points for recruiting others, that could be a bit strange, although some really great companies, really great organizations will offer you a bonus if you help them recruit and refer. So that in itself may not be a red flag of any kind. That might be a yellow flag, or it might be perfectly legitimate. I used to work for Canon, and they were great. They had a wonderful referral program that was completely above board, as far as I can tell. So referring people isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you start to see more of these risk factors with an opportunity, whether it's the role itself, or how you're being engaged, or what the company is all about, what the employer is about, protect yourself. Take a few deep breaths, please, before it's too late. And so that gets to some of my classic advice with clients, is to think about operating in a zero trust framework, kind of almost a cybersecurity theme or a law enforcement theme, or at least trust but verify. So any email that you get, or any text message that you get, or a Facebook Messenger message, what have you, does it just seem too good to be true? Do you know who the source is? Did you have to pull the email out of your gosh dang spam folder? Yikes. And that goes true for LinkedIn messages, by the way. Thank you very much. Does the recruiter seem legitimate? Are they actually attached to the organization they seem to work for or represent? Even checking, like in the example I was showing you, just from this month, when I get messaged by a recruiter who's not in my time zone and not in my continent, that is strange. That's really odd. And that could be, in fact, a scammer who's now taken over that real account, and now you've got another layer to the shell game kind of thing. So this spider web can get real involved real quick. But some of the advice that you'll see from the FTC, I think, should go deeper, and even the Glassdoor article that I cite to should go deeper, but certainly keep your radar open. Take a look at Glassdoor, for example. If you want to work somewhere and they don't have a Glassdoor profile or a Better Business Bureau profile, that's probably a red flag. Or what about your state AG's office? Or is there a business license with your jurisdiction's business licensing entity kind of thing? Can you trace any of the people or the organization down to the brass tacks? If you can't, yowzer. And like I say, that's where I think LinkedIn Premium can actually be pretty handy. So if you, for example, get messaged by somebody on LinkedIn, you can check their organization and maybe trace that back, see if they're actually attached, that sort of thing. But a really basic one too, that I think it's easy to forget, can you jump on a Zoom or a Teams call with a recruiter? So if you're a job seeker and maybe you have a resume on Indeed and Glassdoor, maybe you've buffed up your LinkedIn profile and you're applying to jobs, and a recruiter reaches out and maybe suddenly they only want to message you on WhatsApp or Signal or something like that. That might seem a bit strange, as opposed to Zoom or Teams or, wow, oh my gosh, can we meet for a cup of coffee? Not tea, though, because nobody wants to drink tea when we're talking about a job. We want to drink coffee, of course. But is there any way to kind of meet up with this person? Or if you do get on a Zoom or a Teams call or Google Meet, what have you, what's their background look like? Does this look like somebody who's working out of their house? Do they look like they're in a corporate facility? Look, sense, smell, taste, some of these senses that we have can help us identify a scam. Be careful, please. Did I mention be careful? Protect yourself. So, as I mentioned, you can check out an employer. A lot of employers have a great website. I talk to clients about this all the time. When you're interviewing, for example, for a job, is not to get overly bananas about whatever the employer puts on their website. Check them out on Glassdoor, or your state's business licensing database, or even Reddit if you need to, for crying out loud. Like, do some of that research. Have you ever heard of that organization? Dig deeper than page one, as I like to say. Check them out on LinkedIn. And then you may have to do some verification on the humans who reach out to you. Another key tactic is reduce your exposure. So, for example, I recommend clients many times get their own email address just for the purposes of searching for a new job. So it's not related to your personal email address. You're less likely to be exposing that personal email address with probably some sensitive stuff. Just like maybe a new bank account would make sense for a new job. A separate bank account to now take the dollars that you're being paid for this new job. Maybe not a terrible idea. Way to go. I think most banks will help you set up another account for that purpose if you ask nicely. And the other big thing that I see too is I firmly believe job seekers shouldn't be out of pocket for really anything beyond shoes or maybe a polo, some basic stuff, or if you are supposed to have access to a laptop, fine, but probably most employers can provide you a laptop, a mouse, a box of pens, specific things. A box of business cards probably should be something your employer pays for and doesn't require you to pay for it, sort of thing. Again, you're trading your valuable time for compensation. So double, triple check, what are you being asked to give up before the job might even start? Do you have to pay for the background check, for example? I don't think an employee should ever have to pay for that, so be very, very careful. Or if you have to pay for some kind of strange resume rewrite, that's pretty strange, kind of thing. So I would say check out your local AG's office. State of Washington has some great tips about just frankly deleting job offers that might show up in your email box. Not clicking on links, be careful with that. Make sure you've got good virus software on your computer. Maybe use a VPN when you're job searching, for crying out loud. Be careful of credit checks. And check out those employers. I have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Seems like a lot of folks have forgotten the BBB still is around, but there you go. You might want to check on that. Limit your exposure. Stop clicking on those rando links. There you go. And I would say that goes, that plays out too, is just as true for LinkedIn messages. So, and I'm not trying to suggest that LinkedIn messages are more or less verifiable than an email address. But I think one of the interesting things in terms of the context, I mentioned this in my last presentation, is the Department of Labor has slashed a lot of dollars from their budget and a lot of headcount. So we could make a really good argument that workers, at least in the United States, have fewer protections than ever. We have fewer OSHA agents. We have less money to enforce safety violations, or even wage theft from employers is on the rise, kind of thing. So what does that mean for the FTC? Ouch, right? So, but I would say still report your experiences. This is something where I think it's more automatic, but it seems like folks don't always think of this, is that double or sometimes triple layer of reporting. So if you see a job scam, certainly you can delete it. That's probably the best thing to do, protect yourself. But if you have time, maybe take a deep breath, report to the Federal Trade Commission or your state AG's office, maybe the FBI if it seems especially nefarious, that kind of thing. But I'd say don't let them get away with that, right? So be careful, be careful, be careful. As much as Glassdoor and Reddit reviews can be helpful in posting about this stuff, I think that's helpful, but to get it to the authorities so they can use their resources to hopefully shut them down. So be careful, be careful, be careful. Did I say be careful? I think I did. So thank you very much. Hope this episode was a little bit enlightening in terms of some of the more common job search, job seeking scams, or some of the red and the orange and the yellow flags that certainly I see and clients see and that you'll see in the press. So protect yourself, be careful as a job seeker. It's an especially vulnerable point. Even if you have a job and you're looking for a job, you could say there's a level of vulnerability there too. But Feel free in the comments, let me know if you think I'm on target or off base, or if you think there's some scams that I should talk about in a future episode. Probably do several episodes on this topic, unfortunately, just to try to cover all the different ramifications and ripples and types of scammy activity and bad actors out there. Gosh, I don't know if we could ever do all of that. But thank you for listening. Feel free to reach out. This is me, John Davidson, with all my contact info. There's my email address, and look at all those domains I own. Wow, there you go. But maybe once in a while I might message you from olympicresume@gmail. So Gmail's not necessarily suspicious. But thank you to all the wonderful artists who help with the music, making me hopefully a lot more listenable. So I appreciate that quite a bit. Check them out, support them. And thank you for watching and for subscribing. Please hit that like button. Please leave a comment and subscribe if you like. Feel free to share my feature series here, and hopefully we'll get it into podcast form awfully soon. All right, so take care of yourself. Watch out for those job scams. Be well. Happy May. I'll see you in June. All right, be well.